So I thought a good idea would be for me to mention what veganism is, and then you tell me why you disagree with it,
Sure,
okay?
sure, sure.
So veganism is a moral philosophy that stems from opposing the unnecessary exploitation, abuse, and slaughter of sentient animals.
Mm.
That means for food, clothing, or entertainment. That means we don't pay for any food products that come from animals. We don't pay for circuses, for any sorts of entertainment also, or leather shoes or anything like that. So
Mm.
what is it about that definition that you don't align with?
No, I'm okay with that definition actually. As you know, we spoke earlier, I'm Muslim and we don't believe in any form of cruelty to animals. But at the same time, our faith, Allah has basically told us we are allowed to eat animals, we are allowed to use animal products. And from the point of view of my faith, um, if Allah has made something halal, no one can make it haram, as in forbidden, right? And from that point of
Yeah.
view, I do wear leather clothes, I do have leather shoes, I eat meat, and I don't really see an actual problem with that.
But do you accept that none of it is necessary? It's just choices?
Yeah, in a way, you could say that. Like, of course, we don't have to eat meat, but ultimately, it is natural for us to eat meat. We've
Yeah.
like coming from. It depends which way you want to look at it. If you look at it purely from the biological point of view, humans have evolved to the point where we've had omnivorous diets for, well, from the beginning of time, basically. As a result, we have a digestive system that can handle meat, and we eat meat.
Yeah, I'm not, well, yeah, well, obviously we can eat meat, we can also eat
Yeah,
dairy, right?
sure,
And
sure.
we evolved to eat both. But it's not, and the claim about it being natural, I mean, wearing clothes is nothing natural to wear clothes, right? So wearing leather is not natural. So that is a choice, for example, right?
Yeah,
Just
okay, yeah,
as,
you could say. You could say, yeah.
yeah. And none of the things that we mostly do nowadays are natural. And I don't know if you're aware with what the appeal to nature fallacy is. It merely states that for an argument in logic, it's an informal fallacy in logical argumentation, and it says that just because something is natural doesn't mean that it's good, and just because something is unnatural doesn't mean that it's bad, right? Because if you
Yeah.
take, for example,
Like,
apple seeds, they have cyanide within them.
mhm,
They're natural. They're obviously toxic to us, right? So
yeah.
natural doesn't mean
Yeah, like
necessarily a lot.
penicillin, for example, you can't. I mean, that's unnatural, but it's done us a whole world of good. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, exactly. So natural doesn't mean anything. But let me come back to the whole religion point of view, because
Sure.
so the whole idea about veganism is not necessarily that you have to see it as haram if you don't do this to animals, right? So let me ask you, is it possible to be a Muslim and a vegan?
Only if you have dietary reasons why. Like, for example, I know of at least one Muslim who is a vegan, and this is because this person, I don't know, has issues digesting meat. So for that reason, yeah, veganism as a diet isn't haram. I need to make this clear. As a diet, it's not haram. As a philosophy, it is. And what I mean by that, I mentioned it before. Allah has made it halal for us to not only eat animals but also, use animals for our benefit. That not only includes, like, for example, clothing, but also how we use animals like horses and ox and all of these. Of course, we don't need to use ox for farming anymore. We've got tractors, but in some parts of the world, certainly they still do. And there's nothing wrong with that in my personal view. And it comes down
Okay,
to objective morality at the end of the day. If you
that's okay.
follow,
Okay,
yeah, sure.
I'm sorry. Sorry, go on.
If you follow a particular religion, you're going to have an objective morality based on scripture. If you are an atheist, there is no objective morality. So the morals that you come up with are based on things like John Stuart Mill's harm principle, this type of thing. And even that itself has many problems with it, and it comes down to like lack of freedom and all of this kind of thing. Besides, at the end of the
Well,
day, what's what's right, what's wrong, you know, like how do you define it? If you did
So
follow religion.
yeah, so we can dive into a second, but you said a lot of things there,
Oh,
and
sure.
I want to tackle them. So first of all, I don't want to go too deep into religion because I'm not religious myself, and I respect everybody's choice to be religious, whether they want to do it or not. But I just want to test your hypothesis about this religion thing, right? So you say that animals, we can use animals, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so say I was born, I'm going to throw a hypothetical at you, right? I was born with this mental condition where I can only achieve sexual orgasm by watching pigs get slaughtered.
Hmm.
It's a mental condition. It's how I was born. There's
Sure.
nothing I can do about it, right? And would it be haram for me? The only way to procreate then in my worldview would be to for a pig to be slaughtered in front of me, right? So is that haram for to happen? For it to happen?
Yeah, it would be because we don't eat pigs anyway. But I mean,
But
if you
oh,
changed it to a
replace
sheep,
it with a chicken.
okay. Well, as long as you're eating the chicken, it's
You're
fine.
not eating the chicken. No, all I want to do is just I need to achieve sexual pleasure so that I can.
Well, that would fall under animal abuse, and I'm pretty sure that's not allowed.
Okay, so where do you draw the line between what is animal abuse and what isn't?
Well, basically, if you're killing the animal or using the animal for a particular purpose, that's fine. If you're doing it just for thrill,
But this had a purpose. This had a purpose, right? My purpose was I need to procreate, so
okay,
that's the only way I can do it. So it has a
okay,
purpose.
yeah. In which case, yeah, you could make that argument. You'd have to testify in front of God on the day of judgment to explain yourself. But yeah, if you can justify it, you can justify it. Not something I would condone, but I can understand it.
So so this would be halal in that sense.
Well, it's a bit of a grey area. I would personally say, look,
Yeah,
you know, it's a bit
and I
dodgy,
appreciate you
but
saying that.
if someone really got to procreate, and obviously that's a biological need as well. Yeah, they probably could. Like at the end of the day, it's not for us as humans to basically say you're going to hell, you're going to hell. It's not for us. We got a set of guidelines to follow. God decides at the end of the day who goes to heaven, who goes to hell.
Okay, so I appreciate you saying that there is a gray area there, right? So that means that you also acknowledge the existence of a gray area, right?
Yeah.
So then I ask you, given that for the animals that we eat, let's tackle that. Given that for the animals that we eat, we can choose to eat plant-based, right? As you say, the
Yeah.
diet. It would be allowed by your religion to do it.
Sure.
And given that there is immense suffering behind the way that animals are treated, the way that animals are exploited, abused, and slaughtered afterwards, right? Given all of this is happening behind the scenes, behind meat or animal products, and wouldn't you say that this could also be considered a gray area, given that there's so much harm being done to animals? Because let's say when this whole rules about haram and halal were made, it was a totally different world, right? It was a totally different world how animals were treated back then versus how they're treated nowadays. So given all of this, wouldn't you say that it's a gray area for this
No,
morality?
there's very strict guidelines what slaughterhouses have to follow in order for food to be considered halal. And modern factory farming, like I don't know how much abuse is going on in those factory farms. Maybe there's a lot. And if the animal is coming from an area where there is lots and lots of abuse going on, animals aren't having their rights, then you can't eat that meat. It's haram. But like for example, organic chickens, organic cows, that's fair game. And there are
Okay,
places in
and
the world that obviously there's quite a lot of places around the world that organically farm these animals, and it's completely halal.
okay, and I'll go. Let's go even further because I have a thing in my head that I want to ask you, but I don't know
Sure.
exactly how to ask you yet. So I'll
Yeah.
just go even further with this.
Sure.
Um, so, oh, actually, I think I found a way.
Go
Let
on.
me ask you this. So because you say it's and I understand your point of view from religion, right? You say because there should be no morality that uh, can be put on top of religious morality.
Sure.
That's what you're saying, right? That's kind of the whole point about saying what is said to be halal cannot be said to be haram, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but do you agree that there are things that you still nowadays judge and whether they're moral or not, and they are not written in any scriptures because the world is totally different nowadays than it was back then when the scriptures were written?
Yeah, it's different, but at the same time, the basic biology of man, the way we think, all of that's still exactly the same. The only thing which is different is technology. Apart from that, everything is still as it is.
Okay, so let's say catfishing. Catfishing
Yeah.
definitely didn't exist back then, right? Would you say
Okay.
catfishing is right or wrong?
No, it's definitely wrong. That's
Okay,
basically
and
pretending to be someone else online, right? Is that what it
yeah,
is? Okay, yeah, sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's wrong.
Yeah, to gain
Deception,
something.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah, it's some form of deception. Oh, okay. So what you're saying is that in religion, this would be counted as deception, right?
Yeah.
But then let me ask you this because in this moral, I'm also learning from all of this. Okay,
Of
so
course.
in this moral thing, in this moral area, I know that Muslims have this thing where you say you need to respect the animals, right?
Sure.
And I know that, for example, this world, the world that we live in today versus the world that when the Quran was written or all of these scriptures, they're again totally different, right? People back then weren't eating meat 3 times a day, but rather maybe once a week.
Sure.
Maybe, I mean, that's kind of the thinking, right? So, given all of this, and given how much suffering there is for the animals, and the fact that you have to respect them, and the fact that nowadays we have options, right? So we have options. We don't have to kill an animal. Let's say it um, doesn't mean that you're forced to not kill an animal. It just means that you can make a conscious choice between killing an animal and not killing an animal for food, and you have this option, right? So if do you think you're respecting the animal by taking their life away like 3 times per day? Or you see, because there is a connection there between the frequency that we do it, between how we do it, and between the respect that we give to animals and the fact that we have options, right? Like we can oversimplify it and take it back
Yeah,
to, oh, this
sure.
is halal, this is haram, and say that, oh, well, he clearly said that this is halal, he clearly said this is haram, right? But then we have to take it into a context
Yeah.
specific thing, right?
Yeah.
Because in that context, in that time, that was halal, that was, and that otherwise the other stuff were haram, right? But maybe in the context of today, if you would think the scriptures would be written today, like let's say the prophet would be alive today, do you think he would say it's halal to slaughter these animals the way we do, to eat so much meat, or to even eat any animal at all, given that we don't have to, given that we have readily available options?
It would still absolutely be halal because the Quran was revealed to the Prophet, may peace and blessings be upon him, as something which is timeless and which will go on till the end of time, more or less. So if it was revealed today, it would still be exactly the same. And coming back to that thing, like, what would I rather have? Would I rather have like vegetables, or would I rather have chicken or whatever? I mean, it depends what I feel like on the day. Like I do have, it's not like every day I'm eating meat. I try and stick with what we call the sunnah, where, you eat it when it's necessary, or like, not every single day, but, you got to have a little bit of moderation. Moderation is basically the name of the game. And
But is there any of that written in the scripture? Because you mentioned necessary, right?
it's
Is
in the,
necessary written in the scripture?
I'm pretty sure if you looked at the hadith, you will find that the Prophet and the Sahaba, they had like what probably best to describe it as like a semi-vegetarian lifestyle.
You're cutting in and out. I
Oh,
can't,
sorry. So,
and you're frozen. Oh, okay. You're back.
okay, right, good stuff. As long as you can hear me.
I
Can
can
you?
hear you.
All
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
great, great. Where was I? I was saying something. Hadith.
Oh, I before you start saying, I didn't hear anything from the moment I asked you if any of this was written in the scriptures.
Oh, okay, okay. Right, so let me start from that point. So in terms of being written in the scriptures, I'm sure there's scholars that can explain it a lot better than I can. But from my understanding, it is written in the scriptures in what we call the hadith, which are the life and times, the sayings of the Prophet. And it goes into detail basically what they used to eat. And generally, they used to eat basically pretty rarely. There's this thing, I can't remember the exact saying, I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but I'm going to paraphrase. He basically said something along the lines of to eat once a day is godly, to eat twice a day is okay, and if you eat 3 times a day, well, we may as well build for you a trough. As in, it's not like, it's not full on haram, but it's not something that we should be striving towards, eating 3 meals a day, this type of thing. In terms of like the Prophet's diet, it was probably best described as semi-vegetarian. So obviously they used to eat meat on occasion, maybe like a couple of times a week, but not every single day. And you know, I think I eat meat probably a little bit more than they do, but again, like I'm not averse to something which is vegetarian. I probably wouldn't go fully vegan though ever, because things like eggs, you know, I quite like, you know. So there's that.
Okay, and I'll dive into eggs and dairy in a second.
Sure.
But I wanted to ask you before we go deeper into the food thing. What's your justification for leather then? Because as far as I understand, leather,
Mm-hmm.
you do know that there's animal suffering for leather. And what's your justification for wearing leather? Because
Well, the
that's not, nowhere in the Quran does it say it's okay to kill animals for optional clothing, for fashion, or whatever else.
no, no, it does. It mentions that Allah has provided animals for our use, and that use covers eating and using as, you know, whatever clothing, whatever it is. So
And
there
then
is,
I come back to, and then I come back to the same thing where I
sure,
can have sex with an animal, slaughter the animal
right.
in front of me so that I can get it up, and that would be halal.
You could justify it. Again, Allah would be the arbiter of whether that is justified or not. But yeah, if you can justify it, knock yourself out. As long as you've got a clear conscience, you're doing what you think is right. But again, like I say, this is a very unusual situation. Um, Under regular situations, yeah, that's, you know, a little bit strange when you think.
But regular doesn't mean anything. Regular is just a normalcy of society. Regular today is to fly. If you were to go back 400 or 500 years, regular, you would have told somebody, "Oh, I'm flying from this
Oh
place
yeah,
to
sure,
this other
sure.
place." Everybody would have said, "What the hell
Okay,
are you
but
talking about?"
even
Right?
yourself have to admit, seeing animals get slaughtered to get aroused, this is a highly unusual situation.
So it is an unusual situation, but let me ask you this.
Sure.
Given that you can get nutrition from plants and you can get the same nutrition from animals,
Yeah.
what is the sole differentiator for choosing an animal-based product?
Well, various reasons. Number one, it tastes better. Number two,
Okay, so taste. I'll write them down. Okay.
bioavailability.
Again, nutrition would be identical. Let's not go into the nutrition. Let's say the nutrition is identical.
But they're not identical though. They are different.
They
Now,
are different,
you
but let's
can
say you're getting
obviously you can
so
have,
bioavailability.
yeah. Like
Well,
for
sorry,
example, like broccoli contains a lot of protein, right? But
it doesn't contain a lot of protein.
it contains a fair bit. If you look
It
gram,
contains.
okay,
I mean,
what would
compare
it be?
tofu. Let's say tofu.
Okay, tofu or even beans, right? Beans contains a lot of protein. I'd say broccoli contains a lot of protein. Again, I don't have stats on
Beans
hand.
again. But
Beans?
go on, make your point. I get it.
Okay, well, whatever. Suppose you had 100 grams of protein in front of you. If you were to eat it in terms of like beans or whatever it was, broccoli, and compare it to a steak, right? Like you'd have to have a lot more volume of the vegetables. And I don't know about you, but I don't like eating vegetables all that much, right? I'd rather
Okay,
have the
so
meat. Yeah,
okay, so like is taste, right?
sure.
It's the same.
Yeah.
taste and texture if you want. I'll just put also texture. But coming back to the bioavailability thing so that we can move on with this, because I don't want to go too much into nutrition because, well, while I have some knowledge, I definitely am not an expert in this, and I don't know if you are also, right? So let's say bioavailability of protein from certain plant-based products would be, let's say, 0.8. That means you accumulate 80% of the protein, as opposed to, let's say, you would accumulate 100% of the protein in an animal-based product. You would still have a choice between to eat a little bit more of a plant-based meal versus an animal-based meal, right?
Yeah.
So the question is, again, nutrition, saying that you would get exactly the nutrition that you need from both of them. Your choice, the differentiation between choosing a plant-based product versus an animal-based product is taste and texture, right?
Yes.
And or texture.
Yeah.
Okay. So then taste and textures are pleasures, right, that we get.
Yeah.
They're not about sustenance, because you can get sustenance from plant-based, right? So then the same thing, what is the difference? Because, and this is no longer about, let's say, the religion itself. I understand it's a gray area. I understand with this whole thing. But let me ask you, what is the difference between killing an animal for pleasure, for taste pleasure, and killing an animal for pleasure, for sexual pleasure? Because they're both pleasures. We make the choice based on pleasure.
Killing an animal for taste is what happens all of the time, every day. It's what you would consider as normal, right?
But that doesn't mean anything, right?
What do you mean? It does, though.
Well, if it's normal, there's countries where it's normal to genitally mutilate women's vagina, right?
Yeah.
That there's countries where they do that, where they remove the clitoris. That's normal there, but that's in no way ethical, right?
Yeah, it's
so
also haram as well.
Yeah, so coming back to the same thing, right? Good or bad doesn't mean normal. Ethical or non-ethical have nothing to do with normal, right? So normal is just what the society is doing forever. So again, what is the difference between killing an animal for taste and aside from it not being normal? Because
okay, well, can we use popular?
Okay, you can say it's popular, yeah.
Killing an animal for taste is popular, and not only is it popular, it's fully halal in Islam and many other religions. Killing an animal for sexual arousal, for
it's also halal. It's the same thing. You're killing them for both.
Like we mentioned before, you could justify it if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But it's not in the same way of normal as the other one.
It's not normal because not a lot of people do it. But like, let's say I find one person who does it. I find 3 people who do it. I multiply them. I help them multiply. Don't multiply them. They multiply, and in 100 years, there's thousands of people, and within there, that would be normal. So again, what is the difference between killing an animal for taste and killing? I keep coming back to this because I want you to understand that you are not making the decision based on sustenance or nutrition. You're making the decision based on pleasure, and there is no difference if you think about it. Both are pleasures.
But I have to go back to it's been made halal from the one above.
Because both are made halal from the one above. With the same argumentation, we can use animals, right? That's the same argumentation for both.
One of those examples that you've used is, again, it's extremely, how you say, unusual. Extremely unusual.
It's unusual and maybe unsettling a bit, right?
Yeah, you could say, yeah.
But if you were to find a vegan society, like if you were to find, I'm sure there's there's a lot of large portion of India where they're vegetarian, but there's portions in India where they're also vegan. If you were to go into that vegan society and ask them to kill an animal for taste pleasure, they would say that's also highly unusual, and why would anybody do that, right?
Of the world, yeah.
For that part of the world. But that's what I'm saying is do you think we should dictate what is moral or immoral, what is ethical or unethical based on what society does or what the majority does?
The scripture says. So if the scripture says it's okay, then it's okay. Now, obviously, there's people around the world of different scriptures, like the Hindus. You got the different types of Hindus who are like vegans, whatever, vegetarian. That's cool. That's on them. As I say, I've got no problem with a vegan diet, but the whole vegan philosophy I have a problem with. And it comes down to plant life as well. Plant life, insect life. Basically, there seems to be a hierarchy of species where obviously, somehow humans and cattle and poultry and all of that are at the top, and then everything else doesn't matter at the bottom. For example, if I'll ask you about crop deaths because I know you know about crop deaths. How
Yeah,
many
I'm aware.
how many organisms die of crop deaths, do you think?
I mean, I don't know. There was an estimation that there's 7 billion organisms per year.
No, it's way more than that. It's actually three
How
point.
would you know that?
Well, I looked it up on Google. I did a little bit of research. It's been
Put it up on the screen right now.
put it up. How do I share my screen? Anyway, as I was saying, it's 3.5 quadrillion, which is, if you don't know what a quadrillion is, it's 15 zeros, which is a heck of a lot. So if you think about, okay, you'll have to click, that's basically just my Google search. If you click on that, and it will go through the entire study. But now that is 3.5 quadrillion in just the US alone. So if you think about the entire world and how much farming that goes on, doing all of that, it's
Where did you see that number?
okay. Go to the top, the very top. Okay, how many insects? Okay, if you click on that one, it'll say 3.5 quadrillion. Okay, so that's a lot of animals. Now, yeah, you could argue, oh yeah, insect life isn't as important as, bovine or whatever. But how do you, as a vegan, make that justification? 3.5 quadrillion is a
Um,
lot.
yeah. Well, it's easy to make this justification, right? It's not even that difficult. And the animals you eat are fed crops. So if you have a problem with how many insects get killed for crop production, then obviously you should be vegan because then way less crops would be grown for
No,
vegan
not
food.
necessarily, because like what animals get fed, 80, something like 84% of that, or 86%, something like that, 80 something percent of it, it's inedible for humans. Purely because it's like things like the stalks or it's grass and this kind of thing. Humans can't digest that stuff. So what cattle eat is totally different to what humans eat, you see.
Well, first of all, no, cattle are also cows are also fed soy. They're
Yeah.
not just fed soy and corn. They're fed mostly soy and corn and then grass.
No,
And
it's
yes,
actually
you can argue for.
I would say that that's actually the minority of their diet. They do get fed those things, but it's a small amount. Where the vast majority of what they eat is, fully. Like, for example, in England, if you go to any animal farm in the UK, you'll see that all cows munch on is grass and that's it. They just graze on things.
Let's stick to US. Let's stick
Okay,
to US. You
sure.
started with US. Let's
Yeah,
stick to US.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, with the US, even then, it's uh, it's just
Mostly
like
soy and
a
corn.
gigantic amount of the food that they eat is fully inedible by humans. It's something like 14% that we can eat. Apart from that, the rest of it we can't eat.
Th- does it matter? Because the food, again, the food that they're fed is still grown for them.
Yeah, sure.
Doesn't
Yeah,
matter. Doesn't matter if we can eat it or not, because
yeah, yeah,
we could grow something else on that plot.
sure. But at the end of the day, right now we've got 8 billion people on Earth. Not many of them are starving. The ones that are starving are basically places where, the government has mismanaged the amount of food for the people. But like
Okay.
the amount of food that we throw out, just like looking at the thousands of tons of food that get thrown out every year, Earth can support the population of at least 10 billion. So and we're
Yeah.
currently at 8, so we've got 2 billion more to sort of play around with before we have to start thinking about like more intensive farming if the population gets to that size. So how would you respond to that?
But what does that have to do with veganism?
Well, your argument is sort of made invalid because of that.
Wait, do you know what a trophic chain is?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so the trophic chain is a way of explaining how energy flows.
Yeah.
in our biological system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Plants get energy from the sun.
Yes.
Animals eat the plants. They get energy from that. And then
Yeah.
we get the energy from the animals, as you say it, right?
Yes.
And it's a pyramid.
Yeah.
It's a pyramid, right? This. And the whole point that it's a pyramid is to show that the energy from the animals that are in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
they have a certain amount of energy, and the energy of the people on top is less.
Sure.
So if we were to eat the plants directly,
Mm-hmm.
we would get more energy than from eating the animals themselves.
Okay.
It's
Let me explain it like this. If
that's
you're
calories,
if you're
protein, all of it. Plus, there's plenty of studies showing that to grow 1 gram of plant-based protein, you require like 5 times less land than to grow animal-based protein.
sure. How? Okay. Let me put it like this. If you're on an island and this island is filled with stinging nettles, completely inedible. You try to eat it, you're going to have some kind of like allergic reaction, whatever. It's going to be extremely painful, whatever. You can't eat it. But there's a type of animal on that island that eats it. That's all it is. We're then eating that animal. You see what I mean? Like,
Yeah, but that's not the situation that it is nowadays. I understand your perspective, but nowadays it's not that we have some plants and the animals eat it and then we eat the animals. The situation is that we grow the plants for the animals.
yeah,
That's the
yeah.
situation that we're in. So we could
Yes,
easily grow
yes,
different plants.
we could, but what's the point? We're already throwing away lots of food.
But that doesn't mean anything. We throw away food regardless if it's plant-based or
So it's
animal-based,
it's
right?
not like you can't say, oh yeah, well we're using that land for the animals. Yeah, sure we are, but it's not
We
like
are.
humans. It's not like humans are being put out because of that. You see what I
We
mean?
are using way more land
Yeah,
for animals to create
absolutely, we
animal-based
are.
products than
I'm
plant-based
not
products, right?
disputing this, but
Okay,
you
but you
see,
brought this into it. I don't care about this. I don't think veganism has anything to do with any of this. I think I would be vegan regardless if it would be better for the environment or not. And it is, but
would you
I
describe
would be
yourself
vegan
as an
regardless.
would you describe yourself as an environmentalist?
I am an environmentalist also, yes.
Okay, so
But
like
this isn't about the environment, right? This is a different
this is
concern.
sure this is it's a different
Because
concern.
because if you ask about the environment,
Hmm.
I am an environmentalist, but if I was to find out that eating people would be more environmentally friendly, it doesn't mean that I'll do it.
Yeah. I see
You
what
see
you
what
mean.
I mean? Like
Yeah,
ethics comes before environment, if you
sure,
ask me.
sure. Now, the other thing I wanted to say was, hi, sorry.
Okay, you're back.
Yeah,
The other thing you wanted to say
the other
was
thing I wanted to say is plants feel pain too. It's not just animals
okay,
that feel pain, plants feel
okay.
pain. This has been proven scientifically.
Show me.
Show you.
Show me the proof. Yeah.
Or I can quote some things. You can look it up yourself. Hold up. Hold up. Let me.
Oh, is it the plant scream study?
Yeah, there's that.
And do you know what it says in the within it?
I've read it. Yeah, it's
Do you know
like
what
it's basically they emit an inaudible by humans, but a noise, and it's related
how do
to
they
like
emit that
a
noise?
cut.
How do they emit that noise?
I didn't look into the mechanisms by which they make the noise, but it
It
has been
describes it.
recorded.
It describes it in the study.
Okay, well I must have skipped over it because a
Yeah,
lot
it's
of
called
these
I think
things.
incontinence. It's called
Okay, but
incontinence,
even
where they expose air. They
mhm,
just expose air, and of course, every time I expose air, even if I do,
yeah,
there is a sound that it's making, right?
okay.
So just because a plant is expelling air, it doesn't mean that they're screaming, right? That's just
Well,
mass media make blowing it out of proportion. The
okay,
only thing we know about pain is that you need pain receptors and the central nervous system. And let's say you don't need the central nervous system. You can say, okay, well, maybe you just need, but at least you need pain receptors. And regardless of all of this, even evolutionary speaking, it wouldn't make sense for plants to feel pain. The only reason why we feel pain is because we can run away from it. Plants feeling pain would be ridiculous because they cannot run away with it. So it would be ridiculous for them to have this evolutionary trait. Absolutely all plants. Imagine, like, let's say there you find one plant that has this, but to all plants to have this, it would be ridiculous because that wouldn't be something that natural selection would allow.
okay, that's I would disagree with that. Okay, number one, you mentioned a lot of things there, and I haven't been making notes, but going back to that thing about the central nervous system and animals feel pain because they can run away. Well, not all animals can run away, and not all animals have a central nervous system. For example, the French eat snails, right? Snails don't have a central nervous system. So would you be okay eating a snail?
I wouldn't eat it, but I probably would have no issues if you eat it.
Okay, so if someone claimed to be vegan and had a snail in front of you, would you be like, that's not vegan?
I don't know if so. I think snails are somewhere in the gray area whether they're sentient or not, and I wouldn't say I have a problem with them. I would probably judge them in my head, sure, but I wouldn't go around telling people to not eat snails.
Yeah, so just off the top of my head, you got snails, you got clams, starfish, probably a
Yeah,
few other
they're
animals which don't have brains.
yeah.
They still probably feel pain,
They still
but
have some of them. They
they
have pain receptors though.
yeah, yeah, for
Clams
sure,
have pain receptors.
for sure. But the thing is, they don't have a central nervous system.
It's okay. As I said afterwards, at least you can accept that fact that they have pain receptors, which
Okay,
plants
right.
don't.
Ultimately, what pain is a signal. It's an electrical signal, right?
To
Right.
tell
So,
them to run.
well, not necessarily, because some animals can't run. Clams can't run, for example. Other animals like sea cucumbers, this kind of thing, they're incredibly slow to the point that if a predator is after them, they're gonna get got basically, right? So you can't say,
To
well,
us.
just because this organism can run, it can feel pain. There's non-motile animals, more or less. Like the world's fastest tree is faster than the world's slowest animal. You see what I mean? So there's a type of tree that actually walks.
So
Yeah, go on.
so I understand your point of view, but anyway, it's not like we can dive into, obviously we're right in the gray area right now, right? We're right
Sure.
in the gray area of whether those animals are sentient or not. And I'll tell you right here about that gray area. I don't care.
Okay.
I mean, I have my own opinion about it, but
Sure.
it's my own opinion. I cannot back it up with uh, empirical evidence or anything of those sorts, right? I cannot say, yes, snails are sentient. Yeah, they evolved because of this. I have no clue.
Yeah.
But I can tell you for certain that the animals that we eat, that we farm, are sentient, that they do feel pain, and
Yeah.
that the plants that those animals eat and that we could eat otherwise do not. And even if you agree that, let's say, the plants do feel pain, that again, it's still more plants are killed for the production of animal
Sure.
products
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
production of vegan food. So you're still better off. You're still inflicting less pain overall.
Okay, I understand that, but also the other thing I was going to say about plants feeling pain is logical when you think about it. Even like a 5-year-old can actually understand this. And I mentioned stinging nettles before. That's one example. Stinging nettles, you got thorns, you got poisonous plants. Basically, all of these things are defense mechanisms made by plants because plants do not want to be eaten. The only part of a plant that wants to be eaten is a fruit, right? Because
Yeah.
obviously an animal can eat it, it digests it, poops out the seeds grow, and that's reproduction. And the plant actually wants that. The rest of the time, plants feel pain. And actually, the one really interesting example is a tomato plant. Because when a tomato plant gets munched on by a caterpillar, what it does is it actually releases fragrance to attract predators of the caterpillar. And it can actually release like many, many, many different variations of these fragrances to attract different organisms to defend itself against things which are eating it, which is quite
But none of
interesting.
these are signifiers of pain, right? All of these are
Well,
signifiers that the plant
it's
has a defense mechanism, and it's normal.
exactly,
They're
but
live.
what is
All
pain?
life has a defense mechanism.
But
Pain is one of the defense mechanisms,
but
but it's
what is
not
pain?
pain, it's a feeling.
It's an electrical signal to make something survive, and it's been
Yeah, but there's
proven
more to pain than just this, right? Pain
that's
isn't just
all
the
it is.
electrical signal. No, pain also has the reason why you need pain and why we mentioned that animals are sentient. Sentience is not just defined by the ability to feel pain, but also the ability to reflect on that pain or that pain to emotionally affect you. Plants don't have emotions. At least you can agree that plants don't have
We
emotions,
don't
right?
know. We don't know that for sure. We know that they want to survive. That's all we know. We, do,
Okay.
we can't pretend that we understand this alien world
Based
of
on
plants.
current knowledge.
Okay, there's this thing called the Wood Wide Web. You might want to look it up. I'll type it in the chat. Wood Wide Web. First of all, you may be wondering how I know all of these things because I was actually
No, I know what you mean, but I
okay.
mean,
So
come on, let me ask you, before we dive into the, I don't want to dive into plants. I don't care. I really don't
you
care
eat
about
them.
this. Again,
How how
yeah,
how
we
can you not
eat
care
them, but
about them? You eat them.
because the argument remains, we still kill less plants.
Okay, my argument is I couldn't give a flying squirrel how many plants die. Obviously, with animals, I do care about them a little bit, but not to the point where I'm gonna deny myself a nice steak or a good burger because it's been made halal from the one above, and that's to me that's what counts. That
So
is
your only justification is religion, because religion told you it's
that's
okay, you do
that's
it because it's
that's the
okay.
only justification that matters. Is
To you.
Yeah, well, to humanity, look, at the end of the day, it's like this, and I don't really want to turn this into a religious argument, but
It is one.
if you forget Allah, Allah will make you forget yourself, and we're seeing this in the West right now. Um, and I want to preface this saying, I'm not homophobic. I don't hate people in general. I'm not racist. I'm not xenophobic. I'm none of those things. I'm not transphobic. But you see the way Western society is declining, with the things that they're teaching children these days. And it's
What are they teaching them that they're declining? I don't want to
okay.
dive too much into this.
Okay, well,
Just mention what
basically,
they're teaching them and then we'll stop.
for example, in schools in London, you got drag queens coming in and giving
Yeah, you said
prepubescent.
you're not transphobic. What's the problem about teaching people that they're okay to be trans if they feel like trans?
Well, it's haram.
It's haram.
It's
So again,
haram.
you said you're not transphobic.
I'm not transphobic,
So
but
if
it's
God
haram.
made no,
No,
I don't want to dive into
all right,
religion.
sure,
I don't
sure.
want to dive. I have claims about religion. Don't get me wrong. I was religious. I'm no longer religious.
Okay, well,
So I have my claims. We can discuss religion another call if you want.
I'd love
But
that
right now,
actually.
I want to bring it back to veganism.
Sure.
Okay, and I would love to talk religion with you because you say you're religious. I would love just to have a conversation about
Sure,
it.
sure,
Like,
sure, sure. And I'm not here
but
to offend anyone. Anyway,
me neither.
yeah. So okay,
Yeah, so if
as
I
long
were
as
to
there's no
talk about
misunderstanding.
religion, if I were to talk about religion, I would definitely not record it because I know people can get easily offended when it
Sure,
comes to
sure,
religion.
sure, sure. Actually, I'm probably not the best guy because I'm not like a scholar. I've listened to a lot of people, I've read a lot of books, but holding it in my head is problematic for me. There is some guy called Muslim Lantern. So if you want to speak religion, that's probably the guy to speak to because he knows everything. He can back everything up with evidences. Sorry, going back to veganism, I forget where we were. Sure, it was
But I see that your ultimate excuse is simply just this, that you enjoy the taste and that religion says it's okay to kill them for taste.
yeah. What's wrong with that though? That's okay.
I can ask you what's wrong with killing, like if you take, can we take religion out of it for a
Sure,
second?
let's remove religion.
Okay, so if we take religion out of it from it and you say it's okay to kill an animal for taste, right? Then I have to, sorry about this.
That's fine.
My camera does this thing. So I have to ask you two things. One, what else is okay to do for pleasure? Like I did ask you, because taste is a pleasure. What else is okay to do for an animal for pleasure?
Okay.
And truly what you believe, because again, we removed religion out of it, and what you believe. And then not just that, but then what other animal can we do this to? And what can we do this to a human?
Okay, right.
Can we kill a human for taste? So I have
Okay,
these two line of thoughts.
personally, I think humanity and religion are intertwined. Like you can't say, oh, all right, well, you remove that. If I remove that, then I have no objective morality. And if I have no objective morality, I'll just do whatever I feel is correct, like in my head.
Yeah,
And like
yeah,
the thing is, like we have these morals for guidance and so that society doesn't collapse. Like for example, you could be in your head, you could be like a murderer, as in you got murderous tendencies. You see people, you want to kill them. But suppose you were, you know, you're bound by religion and you adhered to that fully. You wouldn't go around murdering people because it would be wrong. Now, obviously, some people still do, it's because we've got to put a lid on our what we call the nuffs, the what our ego wants us to do. Do you know what I mean? We've got to put a lid on that.
So,
You know?
so what you're saying is that, because the answer to my question is that you cannot remove religion from this.
Yeah, yeah. And if you did,
Okay.
then everything is fair game. Killing humans and eating them would be fair game, and no one can actually argue
Okay, then let me
otherwise.
ask you this. Yeah, so then let me ask you this. Morally, is there any difference between killing a human unnecessarily for taste versus killing an animal unnecessarily for taste? Fucking camera. Is there any difference between the two
Well,
if we take religion out of
if
it?
you take religion out, no. But that's why we have a religion which says yes,
Okay.
one of them is wrong and one of them, yeah, go for it.
Okay, because like if you ask me, the way I'm not religious, so the way I live my life is based on a simple thing called well, there's multiple principles, but the basis of the principle is the golden rule, which is also the basis of most religions, which is do unto others what you want done unto you,
Sure.
right? So I treat animals the same I would treat humans,
Mm-hmm.
in more or less, right? I wouldn't go around talking to animals. I wouldn't necessarily do all, or maybe to some of my companion animals,
Sure, sure,
but
sure, sure.
the whole point of it is I would not, if I would not kill a human, I would not kill an animal unnecessarily. If it's needed, if it's for my own protection to kill an animal, I would kill them. If it's for my own protection to kill a human, I might kill them. If it's, you see what I mean? Like
But
if it's me, if I'm on a deserted island and it's me versus an animal, if I can do it, I might do it. If it's me versus
but
another person, if I can do it, I might do it. It's the same thing.
it's in our very nature to be omnivorous, just like cats and dogs need to eat animals. We gotta eat animals
But
as well. Life needs to eat
but
life. So
But we come back, but we don't have to eat sentient life. We don't have to eat life that feels emotions, that feels pain,
yeah,
right?
I
I
mean,
don't
yeah,
have to eat those cats. I'm omnivorous, as you said. I
yeah,
can eat plants. So I
sure,
don't have to. So, and we are the only, so regardless of all of this, we are the only species, as far as we know, that can understand ethics and morality, right? So, ethically speaking, if we again remove this objective morality that you say from religion, then you also said that it's the same thing, right? Killing a human versus killing uh, a, a, an animal.
yeah.
It's the
If you,
same thing,
yeah,
but you can argue that it's not the same thing killing a plant versus killing an animal. It does not feel the same to you, right?
it may not feel the same, but we have to take feelings out. We're taking an organism and we're ending its life.
If we're taking feelings out, then we're again putting back to the sentience argument. If this plant is not, if a plant is sentient,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe, yeah, you can argue. But if plants are not sentient, then you cannot argue because
Okay.
sentience matters.
Well, I mean, the thing is, we fully can't understand what plants feel. What we do know is that they can defend themselves, and you know
And
they're
what we do know that is that the animals definitely have sentience.
sure,
We have this gray area. Let's say you
sure.
have plants, which is a gray area. They may or may not be sentient, as you put it.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree. I think they're not sentient. But let's say you say they're gray area, and then we have this other area, these animals that are definitely sentient.
Mm-hmm.
So it's obviously still, regardless, logically speaking, better to just kill the plants than the animals.
Yeah, but if you take religion out of it, who cares? Do you know what I mean? Like kill whatever and eat whatever. The other
Because I
thing,
still want to live.
yeah,
The religion is not the only thing keeping me from killing other human beings. You see what I mean? It's compassion, it's empathy,
yeah,
it's my whole moral system doesn't is not
but
based on an
that's
objective
your own
morality.
personal moral system. Someone else might have a
Yeah,
different moral system, for example.
yeah,
Let me
yeah,
ask
it's
you
true.
this. Let me
And
ask
in
you this.
Netherlands,
Yeah,
yeah,
go
go
on.
on.
Okay, so are you okay with pets? Is veganism cool with having pets?
I'm not okay with having pets unless they're rescued.
Okay, fair enough. What if, say, someone rescued a chicken?
Yeah,
You're okay with that? And what if that chicken was laying eggs every day? Could you eat the eggs?
I would not. Well,
But
there's what because what they do in sanctuaries, for example, with the eggs,
mhm,
is they throw them on the ground
yeah,
so that the chickens because imagine these chickens,
mhm,
these chicken laying eggs, they're the size of like this, like my hands, my head,
Mm-hmm.
maybe my head. And these animals, they have to eat so much that they have to release one egg like this
Mm-hmm.
every day.
Yep.
Like that's like a, a 20% of their body. Can you imagine the amount of stress that they go to? And let's say they're bred that way. They're genetically they're been selectively bred to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't have to eat the egg. You can just smash the egg on the ground and they eat it. They get the nutrients back. So I don't have to get the nutrition.
Yeah, you see, I'd eat the egg, and I don't see anything wrong with that. The chicken's producing eggs. I'm gonna eat the eggs. Do you know what I mean?
Well, the only wait, well, if you okay, so if you have your own chickens in your house
Yeah.
and you want to eat their eggs, I have no problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
I will not I will not go to people say, "Oh no, you cannot have." I mean, I have a problem with the idea of still exploiting animals.
Yeah.
They're still treating them as commodities
Mm-hmm.
and using them. But let's say you don't do that. Let's say you treat them as family members who
Yeah.
occasionally they drop this thing that which you eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem with you doing that. I have no problem with anybody doing that.
Yeah.
My problem is that when you buy eggs in the supermarket, which you most likely do, the practices behind them, or milk, the same thing, the practices behind them,
Mm-hmm.
they're 100%, and coming back to religion, they're 100% halal,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's nothing that says so. But
Yeah.
do you know what the practices are behind these industries? Because in a hatchery, for example,
Mm-hmm.
which is the place where chickens come from before they even go to a farm,
Sure.
in hatchery, what happens is the chicks that are brought in, somebody
Mm-hmm.
selects them, and this
Mm-hmm.
is common practice, standard practice everywhere. A
Yeah,
person
then they
selects them, they look,
eviscerate the rest of
yeah,
them. Yeah.
if they're male chicks, they get eviscerated on their first day of life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not
So
halal.
so that's not halal, right? So
Yeah,
when
it's
you
not.
buy eggs from the supermarket, you're most likely paying for this. You're
Well,
paying
I
for
mean,
this.
I'm pretty sure this is not something which happens everywhere in the world. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you
It's
can
it
find farms in, say, Indonesia, which has the biggest Muslim population in the world, and they don't do these practices because it's fully going
everywhere. It's
against.
You know
Yeah,
why why it's happening everywhere? Because everywhere the chances of the new baby being born
mm-hmm.
out of that egg
Mm-hmm.
is 50% male, 50% female.
Sure, 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 sure.
If they would keep the males,
Mm-hmm.
can you imagine
Yeah, they'd be
how
lots of.
many
Mm,
there would be too many of them, so
yeah.
they kill them regardless.
Mm,
So that's number one. That's for eggs. And for the milk industry, you know what happens in the milk industry where they forcefully impregnate the cow, they take away the baby, they slaughter any baby cow, what's it called? Bobby calf, any bobby calf. So if they're male,
mm-hmm.
female, or anything that's extra to the farm, they slaughter them.
They do that in the
So
pet industry as well, though.
yeah, that's what I mean. Also, the
Yeah,
pet industry is not good, right?
yeah,
So
yeah. They they do the same thing. Yeah, these are
yeah.
obviously practices that humans can improve on, for sure, right?
But you oppose all of this because it's haram,
Yeah,
right? All of these are
absolutely.
harams. So that means by that definition, it means that you have a moral obligation to look into where your products are coming from.
Yeah,
So
which is
that means
why.
if you're going to buy milk
Hmm.
from a supermarket, 99.99% chances that you're going to be paying these practices. And if you oppose them, that means you shouldn't be eating milk.
Which is
And the same goes with eggs.
which is why I have organic, and
Organic is the same. What
I'm
I
hundred
described is a
percent.
hatchery.
I am one
What
hundred
I
percent convinced that if I buy organic produce from a Muslim country, it'll be fine. Because number one, it's organic. Number two, is being locally produced in a Muslim land where they know what's halal and what's haram. These things are not going to be happening, and have yet to see
No,
someone prove
because you
me
know what they do?
otherwise.
That's true. Because that probably, I don't know. I haven't looked into it, but I know some countries do this. So what they do in India, for example, for the cows,
Mm-hmm.
what they do also in Netherlands for the cows, because they have regulations and that sometimes it's expensive to kill the cows, is they put them on a container and they ship them to another country to do somebody else do that. So for example, they say we don't kill for eggs, for example, we're not going to kill the baby chicks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, everything I described is also in the biological industry. So biological or not means absolutely nothing for this. Everything I said is pretty standard practice. There's way worse. Obviously, in the biological industry, animals are treated better eventually. But what I described is not something that's one or the other. It's in everything. It's just on the non-biological side, there's even more on top of that. So what they do in these countries is, for example, for male chicks, they might, I have no clue, is all of them get slaughtered, whether they slaughter them on there or they put them on a container or in a truck and send them to somebody else to be somebody else's responsibility, they still slaughter them. So you're paying for the same thing. Those animal lives are still killed. So
Well, again, unless someone shows me 100% evidence that the organic food that I purchase is subjected to that, you know.
but I have footage that shows you that the organic things in dairy are exactly the same.
Yeah, sure,
And I can
but
show you the
maybe that comes
footage.
from like Western Europe or America.
But what I'm saying,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is that, okay, you may not trust my footage, that's fine. But that means that you, because you believe, because it's haram otherwise,
Yeah.
you have the moral obligation to look into it. I
Yeah.
didn't say to stop. I said to look into it.
Sure.
And so far you have evidence, because I can give you footage, as I said, and you can look it up online. You have evidence that this is happening in dairy and eggs. You have evidence for both that this is happening. So you don't have evidence that this is not happening. So far you should treat it, you should stop, and until you get exactly the proof that you need is when you should continue,
Okay,
if you want to
but
continue.
however, what I'll counter with this, the practices in Western Europe and in the USA are going to be totally different to, say, for example, Africa or Asia. So it's not apples to apples. It's not going to be the same thing. But yeah, you're right.
Do you?
You're right in the sense that people should be looking into these things because, yeah, we should be for sure.
Well,
Now,
you should be looking into it, because the only reason you justify eating animals is because it's halal.
yeah,
That's your only justification to do it.
yeah,
And this, as far as you know, this is haram. So
yeah.
that's not the just good enough justification to say, oh, maybe it isn't, because somebody told me
No, no.
biological isn't.
When I buy
But
food,
you haven't
it
looked it
has
for the.
it has a little halal symbol on it, and so that means that farm has had to have been inspected to be halal. Otherwise, it can't have
Yeah,
that
the
halal
farm.
label. Yeah,
But the farm. But for example, for the eggs, right? That's for the eggs. That's not. You see these loopholes. Do you see the loopholes?
yeah.
Because
I see what you're saying, but like again, what you're saying is hearsay and speculation. You're saying just because it happens in A, it must happen in B. I'm saying they're two independent things. They're sure it
no,
happens, but
what I'm saying, this is all standard practice. First of all, it's not that it's my opinion or it happens in the West or in the East. Everywhere I looked, I have had conversations with people telling me it's not happening in their countries. I looked it up, it was everywhere. And it's in the West, it's actually way better because they have so many rules to protect animals. But almost everywhere else, it's absolutely the same thing. These practices, plus on top, they smash pigs where they eat pigs. They do all kinds of other stuff which is horrific, right?
yeah, yeah.
So I would say, again, I believe that, because you can even think about it in a different way. If you go to a milk farm, you will not see males. What happens to the males? It's easy to ask yourself what happens to the males. If you go to a chicken farm, you will only see female chickens. Why? How can that be? There has to be at least 50%.
Sure, sure.
Okay, you'll accept 45%. So if you see all of this, just go to one of these farms, and if you see that happening, that means they're just and they still put halal on the package. That means they're just taking a loophole out of it, right?
Well,
But there should be no loophole in this, because the morality aspect of it is still tainted, right? It's still immoral if this happens to the baby chicks or to the male cows.
still, I would say, look, at the end of the day, life has to eat life. Whether that life is animal or plant, it's got to eat. And the plant
But
has
again,
got to eat.
sentience.
Well, I mean, there's lots
You
of
don't have to eat
insects that
sentient.
fulfill the minimum requirements of sentience, right?
If somebody says, for example, bees are sentient, that's why vegans don't eat honey. It's the
What
same
about
thing.
avocados? They eat avocados though.
Barely.
Well,
What's that got to do with anything?
well, billions of bees die every year because of avocado
Yeah, yeah.
farms.
It's it's the same. I think vegans that eat avocados should look where the avocados are coming from, because not all avocados are pollinated using bees from the bee agriculture.
And the other one, almonds as well. Almonds, right?
Same
Yeah,
thing.
same thing. So,
Yeah,
so
also
it's
with
not just
coconut
that.
milk. I'll
Look
add
at it.
another one, coconut milk. You know what happens in coconut milk?
I
They
haven't looked
in
into it.
Thailand, for example, in Thailand in coconut milk, they enslave monkeys and they put them to take the coconuts out of the trees. So again, you need to look into that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not always that easy, right? But I'm not I'm not here telling you, because you see, you take these edge cases, and you say, oh well, you see, it's not like that. But it really is just as simple as that. Because if I were to ask you, would you rescue, and by the way, we're way ahead, we're way out of our
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
If I were to ask you would you rather, if you're in a burning building, would you save, let's say you can only save a dog or a plant, which one would you save?
The dog.
Yeah, you see, so that's your option every day. Every day you have this option. You can save either an animal or a plant.
Yeah, but the thing
And you say
is,
they're the same. They're not. You clearly showed that they're not.
then, well, the thing is, it is halal. It's permissible for me to eat animals, and I will continue to do so. And no human can tell me, yeah, you can't eat that, because no, that just goes against. Basically, in Islam, we've got a couple of things. So there's something called bid'ah, which is innovation. So this is when someone tries to change the religion. Now, we've all seen examples of religions being changed over time, but Islam is unbending. So at best it's bid'ah, which is innovation, and at worst it's something called shirk. Now, shirk is one of the major sins of Islam. It's basically when you're ascribing partners to Allah. Now, how does that? Basically, if Allah is saying, don't do, sorry, you can do this, and someone say, no, that's now haram, you could say, well, it's either going to be bid'ah or it's going to be shirk. Either way, it's not good. So no one's going to be able to tell me, no human anyway, that, yeah, you can't eat that. I'm going to eat it.
Yeah. I'm not saying you can, right? I'm just saying, like, it's allowed to be compassionate to animals.
Yeah, sure,
So
sure.
why not choose to be compassionate? Nobody's
Well,
saying do not eat animals. I'm just saying, like, let's put it this way, right? You can do whatever you want to animals, right? As you
yeah.
say, based on the right. So why would you torture them before killing them? You can't torture them before killing them, right? Because you can,
No,
and then eat them, as you said.
we
You
can't
can
do
do
that.
whatever you want to animals.
Islamically, you can't play around with them. We can't torture them.
You can't torture them.
Yeah, not allowed. Haram.
But you said anything's allowed.
I didn't say that, did I?
You said we can do whatever we want to
Yeah,
animals.
that's if you take away, um, like Islam from everything. When I say we could do what we want with animals, what I mean is we can eat them and we can use them for various uses, like leather jackets and
Yeah, we
leather
can use
shoes.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not saying we can like torture them for no reason. We can kill them
There's
for
never no
uses.
reason.
Okay,
You
well,
torture them for a reason. You
sure,
have a
but
reason
for
behind torturing
frivolous
them.
reasons. We can't kill them for frivolous reasons. There needs to be like an end goal, like a point to it all. And if there's a
I would
point to
say
it,
taste is frivolous. I would say killing
no,
somebody for
no,
taste is
it isn't
frivolous.
frivolous though. You think it is, but it isn't. Because it's in our
Maybe I don't know the
nature.
definition of frivolous.
It's in our nature to eat meat. This is the thing. Humans eat
Well,
meat. By not
again,
eating meat,
before we go into we're going in circles, but you said it's frivolous. Frivolous means not having any serious purpose or value.
yeah, so
Okay, so do
eating
you
a
think taste, not nutrition, taste? Because let me put it this other way. If I were to uh, eat the plants for nutrition,
Yeah,
and then kill the animal. I kill the animal,
sure.
and then just take the cells or the particles that make up the taste of the animal
Yeah.
and put them in my food. That would be halal, right?
It's an extremely strange situation you're describing. Um, I don't
It's
know.
I'm isolating the taste. I only
Okay,
take
cool.
the
You've
taste.
you've killed the animal for the taste. That's great. You've done that. Well
Yeah.
done, you. But the thing is, what you have to understand, you can't just say, "Oh yeah, taste is frivolous," because we're not just eating for taste. Obviously, taste is part of it. We find that it tastes good because it gives our body nutrition. You see what I mean?
No, again, we're coming
It
back to
does
the
though.
nutrition thing. I told you, you get
You,
the same
you can't.
nutrition.
Yeah, you
You make the
can.
choice based on taste.
Sure, sure. You can get the same nutrition from plant-based things, whatever. I get that, but you still get nutrition from animals, and that's why we eat
You
animals.
can, but you
And
can
that's
also I
why.
can also get.
And this is why animals taste good. It's not just like some random coincidence that
That's not true.
animals taste good.
Nope.
Like for example, if
Ice cream
someone
tastes
gave
good. Ice cream tastes good.
and it
Ice
gives
cream is
us
not
nutrition.
nutritious.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It contains
Yeah, it's as
lots of
nutritious,
energy.
but plants
If
also taste good then.
if you're
It's
going on a marathon run, for example, and you had like loads of ice cream before, that would be classed as nutritious, purely because number one, it's got lots of calories to allow you to run lots of miles, but
But
also,
again, we come back to nutrition. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I don't want to go back into
yeah,
nutrition. I understand your point of view, but again, you make when you make the decision, because as I said, you have both of them have nutrition. Both are equally nutritious, or as just as nutritious as your body needs.
sure,
You make the distinction, you make the choice based on taste. So that's why taste is not, I would say, it's not a good enough justification to
but
kill an animal.
okay,
Nutrition maybe, but taste not.
we'd have to agree to disagree because in my head, there is a reason why things taste better, and things taste better because as an organism, you're craving this one thing, and therefore you eat it. It tastes good. Like for
But
example,
cravings mean nothing.
they don't mean
I
anything.
could crave M&Ms. If I
Sure,
crave M&Ms, if I crave M&Ms, ice
sure.
cream, if I eat sugar, I'm gonna crave more sugar. That doesn't mean it's healthy for me.
It depends on your lifestyle. As long as your lifestyle is burning off that energy, is not. There's no one saying it's going
It's
to be
not.
unhealthy. Well, if it isn't, then
It's
of
not.
course it's going to be bad for you. And that's why there's like
But but my body
gluttony
craves it.
is a thing, and people can become obese. Like we've all been there.
But
We've all put on weight. We've all lost weight. This is.
yeah,
Do you know
but
what I
that's what I
mean?
mean. Like craving, I know what you mean, but that's what I mean. You need to detach yourself, and this is health does not equal craving. Your body doesn't know what's best for it. You know what's better for the body. That's why you have. My theory is that's why we gain consciousness, because
Okay.
we can do better towards our body than our body can do towards itself.
Okay. Let me put it like this, right? When I say, for example, eat lots of meat in one sitting, like a meal, for example, afterwards, I'm not thinking, oh, I want to eat more meat. I'm actually craving different things like fruit, or maybe even dessert. I don't know, but often it's fruit like oranges, apples, this kind of thing. I quite like eating those things, and I actually crave these. But before, I crave, like a burger or steak, pizza, whatever it is, whatever energy dense food that my body feels like it needs. That's the thing that I'm craving. I'm not craving apples unless I've had like the meat or whatever it is, the main part, the protein part of the meal, for example, right? But put it this way, I never crave things which I find absolutely revolting. Like, for example, Brussels sprouts. Oh my God. I can't eat those things.
But
Do you know what I
okay,
mean?
but listen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go
I
on.
know what you mean. But listen, cravings, they come from the gut, okay?
Yeah.
This is just you need to look more into this. But craving, I'm not an expert, but I know that cravings come from the gut. Your gut bacteria is forming based on what you eat. If you're going to eat a lot of meat, you're going to crave more meat. If you're going to eat a lot of unhealthy stuff, you're going to crave more unhealthy stuff. If you're going to, that's just how our gut works, because it balances the bacteria that takes the nutrition from the food. Once it reaches the intestine, the bacteria multiplies based on what it needs, based on what food you give it, right? It's normal. Our body is an efficient machine. So that means that if you're going to give it a lot of meat, it's going to have a lot of bacteria that digest meat. The only way to get away of this, right, if you're going to start eating more and more vegetables and fruit, then you're going to have less bacteria for meat and more for vegetables and fruit, because your body needs to digest more of that.
Okay,
So
well, let's have a look
so
at the natural.
cravings come from this. They don't come from anything else.
Okay, if we look at the natural world and the one organism that I know of that went from omnivorous to more or less a vegan lifestyle, let's call it kind of vegetarian, is the bear, right? So you got pandas and you got grizzly bears and brown bears, right? Pandas, out of pure laziness, basically became vegetarian animals. And they're not doing anywhere close to as well as, say, for example, brown bears or black bears.
But I mean, come on, they both don't exist in the same ecosystems. They both don't have the same predators. They both don't have the same. It's not. It's you can't compare the two, right?
No,
It's
you
not
can.
like
There are lots of predators in China where pandas exist. Do you know? There's lots of
no.
prey animals, I should say. Loads of, like, enough to sustain something the size of a bear, for example. Like, you've got tigers
Yeah,
in China. Tigers are way bigger than panda bears, right?
perhaps, but perhaps pandas, as you said, I didn't even know that pandas are herbivorous, and I don't know if it matters into this whole discussion. But let's say pandas are have developed to be herbivorous, as you said, have evolved to be herbivorous. Maybe it is because at the end of the day, they don't want to move so much. They just want to get the nutrition that they need
Sure,
and
and
what they like.
what they do is they spend all day stuffing their face with bamboo,
I agree. Yeah,
and they're becoming extinct because obviously.
they
I
become
mean, I
extinct
haven't looked
because of
into the
humans.
biology of a panda, right? But I'm pretty sure that their diet has got something to do with their energy levels, right? And I'm not saying that, like, obviously with today's technology, like, you can have a vegan lifestyle, you can supplement it with vitamin B12 and all of this kind of stuff, right? To the point where it feels normal, but it's so much effort to actually, you know, make your diet like this. Whereas, like, if you just, eat, a bit of meat here and there, some eggs, some fruit, some veg, whatever, like, you get all of the nutrients that you require without really any effort. It's
That's
like,
not true, though.
it
That's
is,
not true. I had vitamin B12 deficiency before I was vegan.
yeah.
It means nothing. Meat doesn't mean that you automatically get all the nutrition you
Yeah,
need.
well, most of the time it will. If you have enough meat, you got enough meat, fish, eggs, vegetables. Trust me, 90%. And of course, as long as your activity levels as well are the way it should be, basically, you should always be a little bit active. As long as you've got all that locked
Yeah.
down, you're going to be a healthy human being, unless there's some kind of underlying disorder, which of course many people have. But
And you
you're
can be healthy, just as healthy as a vegan on a plant-based diet. And I'm saying you might say, "Oh, it's very difficult." It's not. It's not. I do think I have difficulty. After we finish our call, I'm gonna go and cook my food. It's gonna
okay.
take me 20 minutes to cook it. I'm gonna have a healthy meal. It's gonna be nutritious, and I'm gonna get everything I need from it.
The thing is, I don't cook. I mean, sometimes I do. It's quite rare. I usually just
You
go
can
out.
buy. It's the same thing, right?
Sure. But what I'm saying is, it's much more difficult to sustain a vegan lifestyle.
It's
Much more
not.
difficult.
It's not.
I
The
mean,
only
okay,
the
well,
reason why
we could debate this till the cows come home. But ultimately, in my head, I think it's more difficult, and it's because I
yeah,
don't.
because
It's because
you're used to it. You're used to your own. Obviously, it's if you tell a person who eats a lot of unhealthy stuff, telling them to eat healthy will seem very difficult. But do you think it's difficult to eat healthy?
no, not really. I mean, it's put it
It's
this
the
way.
same
It's
thing
not difficult, but it's harder to eat healthy than it is to eat unhealthy. I'd put it
because the
that way.
most of the world is unhealthy. Because most of
I
the
would
things that you
say
buy are unhealthy.
I would go so far as to say it's our lifestyles. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're not exercising as much as we ought to be.
Yeah, but aside from exercising, let's keep it to this because what I mean to say, and I understand your point of view. I agree with the exercising. I know we need to eat healthy. I'm just saying that it's the difficulty between a person who's eating crap food and needs to change their lifestyle. They see it as very difficult because they're on the other side of it. That's the same reason why a non-vegan would find it difficult to be vegan because they're on the other side of it. But once you're there, it's not that difficult.
Sure. I mean, you know, it is what it is. But like I say, like at the end of the day, I'm not going to change my opinion. You're probably never going to change yours. But there is a reason why 84% of vegans quit being vegan. Actually,
Those
that's
weren't vegans.
vegetarians. I beg your pardon. It is vegetarian. I think for vegans,
Vegetarians, maybe plant-based, maybe all those are
70%.
diets. I'm talking about the moral, like you, like imagine how many, if I were to bring up how many Muslims are no longer Muslims, right? It's an ethical, it's a
Yeah,
moral philosophy, right?
look,
Veganism is a moral philosophy.
Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. Allah guides who He wants to guide, and that's it. If someone leaves Islam, yeah, sure, there's going to be lots more, um, new. I don't want to say recruits, but people that revert to Islam, because we believe that everyone is born Muslim. Every child is born a Muslim, and once they hit puberty, more or less, and they decide to make up their own mind, they leave Islam or whatever it is. But when you're a child, like 4 or 5 years old, whatever, that's considered to be Muslim. So yeah, they revert back. But anyway, that's kind of going a little bit off what we were
I'm just
actually
saying,
talking
like
about.
the reason why, well, you said a lot of vegans become non-vegans is because they weren't vegan to begin with. They were plant-based, maybe.
I think they were vegan, but the thing is, they
I
found a
don't think
little
so.
bit. Well, the thing is, like, they would claim that they were vegan. They're literally
That's their claim, but they claim a lot of people claim they're vegan. A
sure,
lot of
sure,
people can
sure,
claim a lot of stuff, but being vegan is a saying I oppose animal exploitation,
sure, sure, sure,
unnecessary
sure, sure.
exploitation, abuse, and slaughter. How can I say I oppose unnecessary exploitation, abuse, and slaughter, and
Okay.
the next day say, well, you know what? I'm actually quite okay with animal
Well, do you
exploitation,
remember
abuse, and
that
slaughter.
the first thing I said that I know a Muslim that is vegan? Well,
There's plenty. Yeah, there's
yeah,
plenty. Yeah.
but the reason I bring that person up is because that person has problems with meat, basically. But could be the other way around. You could have people
And
that
they're not vegan.
allergic to vegetables. They gotta eat meat. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure
You
there's
can't be
people like
allergic
this.
to all the vegetables.
Sure, not
It's not
every
a thing.
single one, but like the common ones that people eat. Like your,
Maybe.
you
Is
know,
there again, is there like that? Listen, it's about choice. If
sure.
you have a choice to not kill an animal, why choose to kill an animal? That's why it means to be vegan. If you have a choice to not kill an animal, choose not to kill an animal.
Yeah.
That's all it is. If you don't have this choice and you have to kill an animal to survive, nobody's saying die. I'm not here telling people veganism means that you will
Sure,
die.
sure,
It
sure,
means
sure.
that if you have a choice to not kill, but choice, you have to see the choice. That's the problem, because nowadays a lot of people don't see the choice. You think it's hard, for example. A lot of people I talk to, they think, oh, there's no such product. You go into the supermarket, it's full of options. Everywhere I've been, in all countries, it's full of options nowadays. I haven't been to UAE, but I have been to all the other countries that I've been to, including US, in states that are very
Yeah,
conservative,
yeah.
and you still have options.
All right, okay. I want to touch on one last topic, and then because we've
Okay.
been going for an hour and 22. Honestly, I
Yeah.
could do another hour and 22, but
Yeah, but
I
it's not good
understand your
for the
time is
recording.
precious and
So,
all of this stuff.
yeah.
The image problem of veganisms. Now, what I mean by that is this: there's lots of vegan celebrities now. You got well, I'm going to mention two, but there's obviously others. So, someone like Vegan Gains, I'm sure you've heard of him,
Yeah, I know
and
him.
Vegan Teacher. These are what you can medically class as sociopathic. Do you know what I mean? But like Vegan Gains, for example, he made a video about how he hates Islam, and you click on the video, and obviously YouTube made him take it down, but it's been re-uploaded a bunch of times. For example, you go down the comments, and obviously his audience is probably entirely populated by vegans, and everyone's like, "Yeah, I hate Muslims. Yeah, this. Yeah, you tell them. Blah blah." And it's like, what the, is this clown world or something? It's bizarre. Like, and the less said about the vegan teacher, the better, because, she's made racist remarks before, and honestly, they're a very strange people. But the trouble is, they seem to have a lot of traction, a lot of followers. people that hang on to every word.
People like that usually do, right? People who are what do you call them?
Cult
Not
leaders, basically.
confrontation. Yeah, people
Yeah,
who,
yeah, yeah.
you
Agent
know,
provocateurs.
who
Yeah,
they're provocative. People
yeah,
like that usually have always become popular. But listen, I, I, you can be vegan. You can and not call yourself a vegan if you have a problem with that. That's the whole point about it. I'm not myself and everybody. I'm not advocating for be a vegan, come to my club. I don't give a shit. I care about the animals being exploited. That's it. Full stop.
sure.
If you choose a lifestyle that will you at every point of your life will say I will choose not to take a life if I have the option to not take a life, then that's all I want. There's nothing more to that. You can call that veganism. You can call that legalism. I don't know. I'm okay,
Yeah,
trying to come up with the word. I don't care. And about these people, I don't know them. I don't really follow vegan gains, to be honest. I don't. He has some opinions that I don't agree with. He has some opinions that I agree with. Vegan teacher the same. She has some opinions I don't agree with. She has some opinions that I agree with. I am very much against discrimination, if you ask me, right? So if I hear something like that, as you just mentioned, I think that's discriminatory,
yeah.
and it's wrong, right? Like you can, if you want, you can trash a religion. That's fine. I can trash whatever religion I want, but don't trash the people trusting the religion, right? It's a fine line. So uh, whatever it is, what it is, right? So don't no discrimination, none of that shit, and I disagree with all that. And yeah, it's about the animals. Veganism is about the animals. That's all it is. So bringing it back to the same X thing, if you care about animals enough to not want to take their life, I don't think the next day you can say, nah, fuck it, I'll just take one life
Yep.
today.
But insects class as animals too.
Yeah, but this maybe it's the same thing, I don't kill the flies in my house. I don't. Maybe if there's what a mosquito, but I can't call that self-defense, right? Mosquitoes are
Sure,
gonna.
sure, sure, sure. But like just the farming of crops that people eat, that the insecticides. Otherwise, like the locusts will come, the mice will come. There'll be almost nothing left. Do you know what I mean? And this is why we use
Listen,
insecticides and
yeah, but
pesticides.
all of this is multiplied in the animal industry, right? First
You,
of all,
okay,
as I
I would
explained before.
disagree for the reasons we mentioned before, but then we'd just go in a circle and stuff. But
But you can disagree all you want. There's
yeah,
plenty of studies that show this, right? It's just way because again, you grow more crops for the animal. It's simple trophic chain, simple energy. But regardless of all of this, there's so much more to be said into this discussion because it's not like I, as a vegan person, endorse the way they're being farmed. I'm not saying it's good the way they're farmed. Maybe if everybody in the world were vegan, I would be here talking to you about that farming practice. You see what I mean? I would be saying, listen, did you know that all of these sentient bugs are being killed? We need to do this. And then I would provide you with other options. Or maybe this way I don't wouldn't have to talk with each individual, but rather go to the government and lobby. I don't know, shit like this, right? But I cannot do that right now when we kill fully sentient, grown individuals that we disconsider and we say, fuck it, doesn't matter. I cannot
okay.
possibly.
If you could click your fingers and change the world, what would you do?
You mean like however I want?
Yeah.
I just no discrimination and everybody values sentience.
Okay, so what about all of the cows still in these farms? You just release them.
Oh, you mean like instantly?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean there's plenty of uses, right? You don't have to
But what
like
what would they
but
do? They would just be like roaming the streets of Europe and America and and I guess in Africa they already do that anyway. Just roaming around in massive herds.
they can still have farms for them. They can have sanctuaries. What do you mean? There's plenty of animals in sanctuaries.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. I just
Yeah,
wanted
they don't have to.
because the natural world actually not so much cats, but if you look at dogs, so in Europe you got like wolves and things, foxes, wolves, more than you have big cats. Same thing about America. They used to have big cats. They don't have big cats anymore. But the way a cat kills, its praise. Um, it's what I'd call halal. Do you know what I mean? It kills it, it strangles it, breaks its neck, or in the case of the jaguar, it actually like bites through its skull, and then it eats it. Basically, it eats essentially a freshly killed animal.
It's
Wolves and dogs don't do this. Like wolves and dogs actually rip animals apart as they're conscious. And say, for example, if every farm in Europe, because you don't really get wolves in England, but in Europe there are some wolves, right? If they just let all of their cows go, the wolves would have at them, and they'd actually die a horrible, horrible death.
Yeah, but this is, first of all, this is like in your hypothetical scenario, the world becomes vegan instantly, and
Yeah,
it's obviously it could be a problem that needs solving, right?
yeah.
It could be a problem that needs solving. I agree with that. But the reality is that if the world were to go vegan, it wouldn't happen like this. It would happen like this.
Okay, yeah.
It would be a step-by-step approach, right? So it's a non-issue in your hypothetical. It is an issue, and in your hypothetical, maybe that would mean we need to find solutions, whatever those solutions are. I don't know, right? We need to take into consideration so many more factors that I have no knowledge of, like I don't even know, because as you said, some wolves may eat them. Does that mean they grow the population of wolves? What does that happen to the whole uh, ecosystem? I'm not sure if releasing them would be the right thing to do. I'm not sure if not releasing them. Like I have no knowledge. That there's so
Yeah,
many
yeah.
factors to take into consideration. But if you take it a step-by-step approach, it's pretty easily. Slowly, more farmers would migrate from farming animals to farming plants. Slowly, we would get, I don't know, maybe lab-grown meat, maybe all sorts of other stuff that replaces meat, and people would slowly buy less animals bred into existence, therefore less animals slaughtered. So you get to this place where at some point we look back and we say, can you believe we used to kill animals for taste?
Again, nothing wrong with that in my opinion. But anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah.
Actually, you know, thought this conversation was well, it's interesting. It'll give the viewers something to talk about. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think, because let me just ask you this: what do you think about animals for entertainment? Like what they do in Spain, what they do with the bulls and
Yeah, not my thing. Not my thing.
not your
I don't
thing,
like
right?
it. Yeah, haram.
But would you say that's ethical?
No, no, absolutely not. No, especially things like bullfighting. No, no way. No way.
But why not? Why not? Because it's this, it brings you pleasure.
We're
It's
not
the same
eating the
thing.
animal afterwards. If we're,
Oh, they are. Yeah,
oh,
they
are
are.
they?
The bulls are being eaten. Yeah,
But
afterwards.
they're
Yes.
not being slaughtered in a halal way.
Let's say they
With
were.
halal, there are
Let's say they were.
there are a bunch of rules that you've got to sort of follow for it to be considered halal. Ultimately, what you're doing is you're sacrificing the animal in the name of Allah. That's basically what it comes down to. And for that, the animal must be sort of respected. It must be quick. All of that
Okay.
stuff. What they're doing, like chasing the animal down the streets and all of that, or making the animal chase them or whatever. No, this is un-Islamic. Yeah, I'm not into that. It was just
Okay.
very weird because I've been to Spain, love the place, it's great, but that's one practice that they do which I don't agree with. But anyway, each to their own. Like if they want to do that, in the day of judgment, they'll have to explain to Allah why they're doing these things. I'm not going to sit here and have a go at the entire country of Spain for this thing.
Yeah, I don't think
You know.
I agree with you. Like you have probably very little impact, but I wouldn't say to each their own. Well, I would say this is a problem, just like there's other world
Yeah, yeah,
problems
yeah,
that needs to
yeah.
be treated, and something needs to be done about it. And yeah, I can see that all our arguments eventually they boil down to religion, where you say it's okay because religion says it's okay, and I say, well, I don't really care what religion says to me, because to me it's simple. Like to me it's simple. Even if religion says it's okay to harm an animal, and I have the choice to not do it, I still choose not to do it. That's just my own perspective, regardless of what religion says. Regardless if religion says it's okay, I say no harm is still better than harm, even if they're both okay
But
in your
I
view,
mean,
right?
I would say like you still harm a plant by eating that plant.
but you harm less plants also. So in the end, you
No,
still
you
less
actually
harm.
no, you harm more, and I'll explain why.
You
Because, like, say for example, I had like how many animals do I eat every week?
circles.
Suppose I had two chickens and a bit of beef a week. That would be, say, over the course of a year, 100 and say 200 animals. 200 animals died because of me, myself, personally. Now, if you look at organisms, the number of organisms killed if you're a vegetarian,
Sentient organisms.
again, there's that thing, sentience. They still feel pain, and that's it.
If
If you
they're
look
not
at
sentient, they don't feel pain. But whatever, let's
they,
move on. Let's
okay,
say they
well,
are
I mean, in
sentient.
my worldview, they feel pain, and again, there have been scientists that have demonstrated that they do feel pain, and they recruit others, and they have
Okay, explain to me how
experiments
the
to
number
test
is
them.
bigger in your view.
Well, if I have if I just count the number of organisms on my plate, like say for example a carrot, how many carrots am I gonna eat a week? Well, it's gonna be probably more than two. How many
Yeah,
cucumbers?
but
Do you know
you,
what I
you can
mean?
count that. Yeah, you can count that on your plate. But
Yeah,
if you count the number of organisms that died before reaching your plate,
yeah,
it's
yeah. Of
different.
course,
It's
but
much
you can
bigger
do the
because
same
the
with
animals have to be fed also
sure,
crops.
but the plants need to be sprayed with insecticide and pesticides, which kill, like I say, quadrillions of bugs. So
Why
for
do you
that
think
reason,
this is not happening for the crops grown for the animals?
well, we have to save the crops so that we can get it into our belly. But anyway, in terms of literally number of organisms on your plate, you'll have more organisms on your plate on a vegan slash vegetarian diet than if you have an omnivorous diet, for example.
Perhaps, but then you'll have more organisms dead under your plate. I have more on my plate, but you have more under
Okay,
your
if
plate.
the entire world went vegan, right, you'd probably have to grow more crops, right?
No.
So
There's actually,
the
yeah,
crops
there's
that we
there's
are
plenty of
growing,
calculations for this.
okay,
Yes.
so the
Yes,
crops that
there's
we're
actually
growing fully support the number of humans that there are. Okay, great.
they don't just fully support, they overtake it. We would take about 25 to 30% land back by if everybody went plant-based.
Yeah, but then where would the meat be? I like to eat meat.
But you understand, before you dive into this, you like to eat meat. You understand the whole point of it, right? You because you said there's more of them dying. It's not true. More still die for meat.
Yeah, I mean, I would still disagree if you look at the numbers.
I have the numbers,
3.5
man. I have it. I
quadrillion.
have
And that's
studies.
USA alone. 3.5
I have studies
quadrillion
showing you
animals.
I have studies showing you the number of crops grown for animals versus crops grown
Most
for
of that
vegan
is
food.
inedible by humans, though.
But they're grown for
Yes, but
animals.
they're fully inedible
They
by
wouldn't be grown
humans.
for animals. Doesn't matter. They wouldn't be grown for animals. They would grow something else for
The
humans and they would
animals
use less
gotta eat
land, less
something.
pesticide.
The animals gotta eat something, right? Unless you want them all to starve to death. Do you know what I mean? They
But
gotta eat
listen,
something.
listen. We can't go around in circles. We've already discussed this. Listen, you may not believe it. I will put in my YouTube channel. I will put all the studies showing under this video showing exactly this, showing all the studies showing that there is way more land being used, way more crops being used for animal production. Number one. Number two, you that means you kill more beings. Number two, that's still again, it's not something I endorse. It's not just because I'm vegan doesn't mean I endorse the killing of crop deaths. It just means that it's a problem that needs fixing after I fix this other one, because unfortunately it depends on the other one. I cannot say, right? I,
Yeah.
that's one, that's
Okay.
two.
I mean,
And
yeah. Go on. Go on. Final point. Go on.
and three, there's a difference. There's a huge difference. Nobody in, well, maybe there's people in plant agriculture, but most people in plant agriculture, when they kill an animal, well, when they put pesticide, they put it to protect their crops. They don't put it to kill the insects. They go like, today I'm going to kill insects. They put it. They say today I'm going to protect my crops.
I know. I know.
So, but for the animals, they intentionally get killed. Today I'm going to kill the animal, not I'm going to protect anything.
Yeah, but it's
So there is
to feed people.
there, but you see, there's differences, and regardless, I mean, would you let me ask you this: would you rather live in a world where we intentionally harm animals, or one where we don't intentionally harm animals?
Again, it depends what you mean by harm. If you mean harm to eat them, look, I'm cool with that. If you're harming an animal to eat it, that's it.
Regardless of the reason.
If it's regardless of the reason, that changes obviously the narrative, the story, and obviously the ethics behind it all. So that's a different situation. Obviously, I'm not pro animal cruelty. Never was, never will be.
But you pay for it.
I pay to eat animals. So there's a difference
You don't have to.
because it's in my
Again,
human nature. I want to.
you don't have to. It's in my maybe in my human nature to be violent when I'm angry. It is human nature after all. When I'm angry, to want to punch somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But if it doesn't mean I should punch somebody.
Look, ultimately, I feel better when I eat meat. Put it that way. Like if
Yeah, but
someone
that's
gives me a plate of vegetables and a plate of like like omnivorous food, whatever it is, right? I'm gonna wolf down the omnivorous plate. Animals do the same thing. I've seen people with like
yeah,
vegan
but
pets. They give
let's not go into animals because animals don't have. Again, we already touched upon this. Animals don't have the understanding of ethics. I don't stop
yeah,
eating meat because I don't like meat. I stopped eating meat because I don't like what's happening to the animals.
sure,
It's
but
not
the thing is, I'm
it's not
looking at it from
about
the
the
point of
food, the
view.
nutrition.
I'm looking at from the point of view that we're, you know, in terms of the animal kingdom, we're one of those. We're members of the animal kingdom, just like a dog is. Now, if you have a, a dog being fed a vegan diet and you give it like like two bowls of food, it's gonna go for the one with the meat. It's been
Yeah, again,
demonstrated over and over again.
I don't know if that's true, first of all, and secondly,
I've seen the videos. They're
second,
quite
and secondly,
humorous.
this means absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
This means nothing. This okay. So what? So if even if I prefer, let's say, even if I'm vegan, and let's say I think meat tastes better. I don't, but let's say if I do think that, I still oppose the commodification, exploitation, abuse in animals. So
Mm-hmm.
I still don't do it. You see what I mean? It's not about myself. It's not about my diet. It's not about how I feel or what I want to do. It's about somebody else being impacted by my decisions, the animals.
Fair enough.
I oppose all of it because of the thing that's happening to animals. I don't just do you think I like being different from everybody else? I don't like it. I wish everybody was vegan because I oppose for what's happening to the animals. That's all it is.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, we could go on. I feel like we could go, but then we'd be going around in circles and things.
Yeah, we're
So
going around in circles.
yeah.
So let's just end the conversation here.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for having this conversation with me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what you took from this conversation. I just took
No,
that
it's just nice to have a conversation. I don't really get to have this level of chat with that many people, so it's good to discuss ideas and stuff. So yeah,
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 hey, listen, if you're up for it, we can also do it live if you want. I don't
yeah. I'm up for it whenever. It's